Man, what a day it is outside. It's a nice wet, rainy day. I thought, what better time than to talk about keeping your traps operational. And, there's many challenges that you face throughout the trapping season with weather. And Mother Nature, she can be a fickle bitch sometimes. But the thing that you gotta, be concerned about with the weather is the rain, the snow, and freeze-thaw conditions. Keeping your traps operational during these times are really key to putting up numbers and to making good catches and keeping your traps functional and operational. A lot of the times you'll see canine, or a lot of fur bearers, they'll move during the front, I should say before the front or during the beginning of the front, and then I have a lot of success with after the fronts. Whenever the pressure systems change and you get that big rain that's coming in or the snow that's coming, a lot of times I'll have good catches before that front comes in, but the majority of what I've noticed is I do really, really well post the weather system front. So after the front comes through, I notice that I'm picking up good catches and having good success. So to get into keeping your traps operational, you have to keep them dry. You don't want them to be frozen. You don't want there to be standing water in your sets. And it can be difficult at times. There are guys that drill punch holes down or drain holes down that can hold, an inch of water. But if the ground gets totally saturated, that water can leach in from the sides, from the bottom. It doesn't take much for your trap or your trap bed to be out of commission. And ways to combat that are with using a flat set, something that is flush with the ground, not a super big divot, and then covering it with dry dirt, waxed dirt, peat moss, grass clippings, and then maybe getting away from using dirt holes, maybe using a rock at a flat set, scat at a flat set, or other flat set techniques. Now, I also really like to use the trench style dirt hole, and I have caught a lot of canine with the weather being bad and with there being water. Now, if my trench is completely submerged with water and my hole is submerged with water, I do my best to take the trap out, slop as much of the water out as possible, try and get my hole situated. But instead of worrying about my hole now, I'll just go and I'll dig up a big thing of grass clod, or if there's a rock close by, I will just take that and put it over where my hole is, and then bait and put urine on the bottom of that grass clump, put that on top of the hole, and then I'll just go back and try and rebed and get everything situated. And that has worked well. It's helped me to keep catching, and it's helped put numbers in the barn, which ultimately that's our end goal. So another thing is freezing. Now, we all know that when the ground gets saturated, temperatures drop, the ground freezes. But the ground just doesn't freeze. When it freezes, water expands, so it comes in. So if your trap bed if your trap bed, you have your trap bed it in the ground, and pretend that my hand is the earth. So the jaws are going to be down, levers are going to be down. That water is going to freeze, and as water expands, it's going to come in. And that freezing is going to put pressure on your jaws, and sometimes you can see after a freeze thaw, some of your sets will be set off, and you'll think, well, what happened there, or why did that happen? Well, it's because that pressure from that freezing came in, disturbed your set, and ultimately ended up firing your jaw, or firing the trigger and popping your jaws. So a lot of times, if you get a long cold front that comes through and it's cold and froze up, and you think, oh, my peat moss is good and dry on the top. If you don't have a bed that is wide enough that's going to be able to sustain some inward force from that frozen water, then you could be out of commission, where it's frozen on you and your jaws aren't going to spring up because everything's frozen in. They might be able to push that pan down and trigger it, but with that much pressure that's coming in from the frozen ground, your trap won't fire, and you could be out of commission, and that could be costing you time, money, fuel, wear and tear on your vehicle, and then catches. So things to think about with that, and in keeping your traps operational, is having a wide enough trap bed. Also, maybe using things like wax paper at the bottom of the bed, or maybe a grass clippings at the bottom of the bed, to just try and keep that frost from getting on and attaching to your metal. And with your bed being a little bit wider, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room whenever that freeze comes in. So whenever that water expands to freeze, it'll give you just a little bit of room, and maybe keep you a little bit more operational. So some other things too to think about are using road heat, calcium chloride, or salt. And I know a lot of people say they get deer and rabbits and this and that, and they get a lot of activity from non-targets. So when I'm out trapping, I'm trying to get out as many traps as I possibly can, and I don't have time to worry about if I'm going to catch a deer or if I'm going to catch a rabbit or whatnot. I try to stay away from places that maybe aren't so prone to jackrabbits, and with maybe the use of my pan tension, that might give me a little bit of leeway. Deer, it's going to happen, but I would much rather have 80 traps out that are functioning and maybe have 10 popped off by a deer than have 80 traps out that are not functioning and essentially 0% of possibility of catching. So the things I use whenever I'm setting and running a line when it's freezing, I'm using peat moss, dry dirt, salt, or calcium chloride. It don't matter. I don't care which one it is. I will use either one. Salt's easy, very easy to get from a Dollar General or any mom and pop store, or big brand store. Calcium chloride, you can get that from any hardware store, or like a Lowe's or Harbor Freight, Rural King, Menards, Home Depot, you name it, you can get it there. Or you can get it from a mom and pop. The grass clippings, I have a relatively nice sized yard. I can mow my lawn. I can take a lawn sweeper and gather up all my stuff, dry them out, make sure they're good and dry so they don't mold when you put them in a bag. And I like to use burlap sacks or like old feed sacks that like grain mill comes in, or food source for your livestock. So those are the things that I use, and they have been very beneficial on my trap line, and it has really taken me to a next level, or accelerated my skill, or I should say my production. And people use wax dirt. I have used wax dirt, and I liked wax dirt, but I don't like making wax dirt. I don't like having to carry it around. It does get pretty heavy, but if you're operating out of an ATV or out of a truck, you know, I could see where the negative would be outweighed by the positive. Essentially, all I did this year was just take dirt, get it bone dry, and then put it up in storage. And my thought process is, if it's freezing out, my dirt's already bone dry, I'll clean out my set, put in my dry dirt. It's not going to get wet unless there's a freeze thaw. And then if there's a freeze thaw coming along, I'll start using my grass clippings or salt, calcium chloride. I've got peat moss. And, you know, I said earlier you could line your bed with wax paper to kind of protect from that water coming in and leaching in and getting onto your trap and freezing your trap. You can also use peat moss, you can use grass, but I think the best method for if you're wanting to protect is to put the wax paper down in the bottom of the bowl of your bed, and, you know, crumble it up so it's not crinkly, or if you don't care, then just put it in the bottom and go at it and keep trapping and keep taking some numbers. So, you know, those are the big things, and I'm trying to think if I've missed anything. I don't go off any cue card. I don't, you know, have notes put out in front of me. This is all just from memory and experience that I'm trying to relay to you guys. So, yeah, I mean, I like with the sets I use are the trench set and a flat set. And like I said, you can do any variation of that flat set. You can use a T-bone, a rock, a punch hole, a pipe, a grass clump. There's a lot of variations that you can use. So that's a good thing to have in your arsenal whenever you're dealing with these conditions. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, but I don't care what the attractor is or what the focal point is. My set gets made the same way every time. So I call it the sweat method. And I just construct the same set the same way. You know, depending on what the attractor is, could maybe fluctuate with the distance between my trap and the focal point. And then with the trench set, it's a decline, so it's not like an actual bowl. It's it starts up here, my hole's right here, and it slopes down into the hole. And so water don't typically get into that because I set it up, unless the water gets up above the lip that I have that comes out that protects my trap lever. So water don't typically get into that unless the whole ground gets saturated and then starts coming up from the sides and the bottom. And that has worked well for me. It's really easy to just take some rubber gloves, grab your trap, take the slop out, reconstruct your set and move on down the road. It's less than a minute. Now, something that I will get into, and that is rain gear or cold weather gear. And I'll touch on this a little bit more in a different video, but when you're out, you want to have a decent set of rain gear that's going to keep you comfortable and dry. Because one of the biggest detriments to running a trap line is being uncomfortable, being cold, being wet. And it can really take a toll on you when you're sitting there and you're like, man, I could go home. I don't need to go out and set another 24 traps. I could just go home. I got where my line ran. I don't need to put out new sets. It'll be fine. that's not gonna put numbers in your barn. That's not gonna put you at a higher level of trapping. You have to figure out ways to keep catching. You have to figure out ways to keep progressing your skill and to outwork maybe the next person, or maybe you're just trying to outwork yourself from the previous year. That is what I try to do. I don't try to, battle against anybody. Now, if I'm trapping up against someone, yeah, it's game on. But I'm just trying to throw out some just little tidbits, and then cold weather gear. You don't want to get cold. I don't like my hands or my fingertips getting cold, especially running on an ATV. I've got covers that go over my handle guards. I've got leather gloves. I've got good warm insulated boots. So, and I wear knee pads so that my, if I got my rain gear on, or if I've got my overalls on, my legs my knees typically do not get wet, and then that doesn't transfer to coming in and soaking any of my clothes. The rain gear that I use it's called Kuiu, and it's expensive. It's not a $50 set. It's like a $500 set. So, but it is a top-notch, high-end. You buy it one time. It's got a lifetime warranty on it, and anything happens to it that is caused from a manufacturer, say your threads start to wear out, or you start to get a wear where you're using your legs a lot, it's covered. Now, if you're crossing barbed wire and you snag it on barbed wire and rip it, it's not covered. So keep that in mind. But the Kuiu rain gear is top notch. It's phenomenal rain gear, and I think if you just bit the bullet, spent the money one time, took care of it while you're out. I ran it all last season, and I had no issues, and there's no rips, no tears. It's like it's still brand new, just got a little bit of wear from where it's gotten, mud stains or blood stains on it from catching animals and dispatching them. But it's phenomenal gear, and I think you'll be happy. I'm not going to harp on it any longer, but you'd be happy if you went ahead and bought it. So that's just a little kind of quick video I wanted to give you, because it was raining and I was like, I should just go ahead and talk about this and get it out there in the open. That way, guys can maybe give me some of their feedback and maybe tell me what you do, and so maybe something that I could use or grow on. Or maybe you want to be tight-lipped and keep it to yourself. That's fine. I'm not stuck in my ways. They say that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Well, I'm not insane when it comes to that matter. I will try and figure out how to get better results and progressing. And I think that's something we should all strive for. But hey guys, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend and your holiday weekend. Stay safe and take care.